So just today, the 26th of October, 2020, Games Workshop on a Warhammer community article surreptitiously released the release date for the new Imperial Armor Compendium that would be bringing all of Forge World's datasheets up to date in 9th edition. So today, let's talk about what we can find in this article and the changes we know are coming to Forge World's profiles in this new book. Let's do it! What's up, folks? Welcome back to Tactical Tortoise. My name is Trevi, and today we're talking about some Forge World. The biggest thing in this Warhammer community article is the announcement of the actual release date. That being Friday, the 30th of October, 2020. Now, this has been something that we've joked on the channel for ages about, which is that Games Workshop previewed this compendium back in January. Everyone assumed it was going to be coming out either early 2020 or alongside the release of 9th edition. Neither happened, and Games Workshop was unforthcoming with any additional information. It caused some issues that we talked about previously, with some Forge World datasheets being mishandled and players not knowing how to play them in the game. It was a whole mess, but now we finally have a release date, and it looks like we're going to be getting rules for these units coming this week. I'm so excited. Let's get into the rest of what this article has to say about it. There is a table of contents which lists not only the general contents of the book, but also every single datasheet. I just went through and I have listed every datasheet that I can find personally that is not included in this list, so that we can get a sense of the scale of changes that are going to be made to 40k. In total, 191 datasheets in this book, which is insane. Hopefully they've all been addressed with care and we don't have, Landspeed or Tempests or Relic Contemptors ruling the metagame anymore, but we'll see. They also mentioned some new rules for the Death Corps of Krieg. It looks like Death Corps of Krieg are just going to be treated as a standard Imperial Guard regiment, which is, in fairness, how they should have been, instead of their own weird, standalone kind of sub-army. So they're just going to be getting a regimental doctrine, and as we'll cover when we talk about the datasheets included, a lot of their unique datasheets have been removed, and I imagine the intention is that you just play them as the Astra Militarum equivalent. So their new ability lets them ignore penalties of combat attrition tests, so they just have it, and they shall know no fear, which makes a ton of sense. That's very thematic for the army. They also have a sort of weird equivalent to a chapter ancient ability. If the characters or vehicles in the army get killed on a 4+, they get to make a swing back or an attack back before they're removed. It seems not that great, to be honest, and I don't think anybody's really going to be excited about putting Death Corps of Krieg on the table. For this ability in particular, having vehicles shoot when they die is pretty cool, but it is only one attack, or it's an attack with one of its weapons, so it could shoot like a Demolisher cannon. However, it's going to be bottom profile, probably for the most part, so it's going to be hitting on 5s or 6s. Probably no rerolls in there, although we'll see exactly what abilities the rest of the army has. So it's not a very effective shot. It's kind of weird that this doesn't affect the infantry. I guess maybe they were worried about it being a little too widespread. If you bring like 100 guardsmen and all of them get to shoot on a 4+, it's a lot of extra attacks that you get to make. But if they're last guns, I don't know, just let them have it. I guess heavy weapons teams would be problematic with that, but it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. For characters, it also just lets them make a single melee attack, which is pretty bad. Obviously, Imperial Guard characters are already bad at fighting. Just let them swing all their full times. That'd be a cool ability. That would actually make it potentially a little bit dangerous if a Death Corps of Krieg company commander or something is leading the charge of his men and gets up in the melee and could potentially be swinging 6 or 8 attacks into you. It maybe gives you a little bit of pause. The Space Marine captain's probably not going to die to that, but he might gut a unit or two. Overall, not super exciting about this ability, but it is nice to see Death Corps of Krieg getting a little bit of love and at least getting recognized in part of this. Some of the other sub-factions that GW has, or that Forge World has listed in the past, have been entirely removed, so at least Death Corps of Krieg still exist. I think they are too big fan favorites to disappear entirely anyway. They also talk about some characters coming back from the Forge World's favorite custom Space Marine chapters: Red Scorpions, Minotaurs, Blood Ravens, Astral Claws, and Carcharodons. It sounds like they will be getting chapter rules as well. Now, let's talk about some datasheets. So just for all you folks, I went through every single Forge World datasheet that I could find to determine whether or not it was being included in this new book. And so that was a vast undertaking. I do hope that I have it all right and I don't have any mistakes in there. Obviously, I may have missed one or two, and unfortunately, the table of contents that they put on Warhammer Community seems to follow no particular orders. So matching up the data sheets with their place in the table of contents was a little bit frustrating, but I think we got through it. And I'm going to start posting up all of the missing or new data sheets or sections that are being included in the book for each faction. So as I'll go through, I'll just put those up on the screen there for you. So all in all, almost every faction being represented lost some data sheets, so steel yourself for that. Very few factions got by unscathed. It looks like a lot of it was paring down the Forge World catalog and taking some of the weirder data sheets that were used to represent like bizarre and esoteric patterns of vehicles in specific troops and things like that and removing them. We're talking about Space Marines first. Space Marines are obviously the biggest section of data sheets, so they also, consequently, lost the most. And it looks like the character selection that they had previously from old Imperial armor books has been absolutely gutted. There was just this glut of Space Marine character data sheets with no models, so you couldn't buy them. You had to convert a model for them or proxy them or something like that, and a lot of those have been ripped right out. I think notable ones, Laius Isidon, not in there. He's gone. Sick. If only this had happened a year ago. We could have saved ourselves an embarrassing couple months of ITC play, so that would have been nice. Some interesting ones. Deimos Relic Predators, it looks like, are gone, which is kind of weird to me. Whirlwind Hyperios, which was kind of a cool off-meta pick for a Whirlwind option, is gone. Mortis Contemptors are gone. Standard Mortis Dreadnoughts are gone. Thunderhawk Transporters, that one caught me off guard. How are you going to get your Land Raiders to the battlefield now? Overall, not a ton of stuff got removed that saw play. Laius Isidon is the headliner there, but obviously he doesn't really see play in 9th edition anyway, so I don't think that's really gonna... Nobody's losing any sleep over that. As far as I can see, there's no new data sheets, but there is a section called Chapters of Renown, and I'm hoping that this section has some actual rules for all of the Forge World chapters and gives you actual chapter tactics for them and tells you, whether or not they can be taken as a successor. Please, God, Forge World, please fix that problem with your data sheets. Astra Militarum, another big swath of stuff. There's obviously a kind of an upheaval here because the Death Corps is being rolled into the Astra Militarum. Some stuff that's missing, the Death Corps special character, Karis Venner, is gone. Atlas recovery vehicles are gone. Most of the Death Corps specific infantry are gone, so it looks like the Death Corps Command Squad, the Death Corps Quartermaster Cadre are gone. Grenadier Storm Squads are gone. Those are probably all going to be replaced with the equivalent from the Astra Militarum Codex. So you'll have, instead of Grenadiers, you may have Veteran Squads, and instead of Death Corps Infantry, you'll just have a Standard Infantry Squad. It all makes sense. Otherwise, things of note, it looks like all of the Leman Russ variants have been removed. It doesn't look like there are any Leman Russ in this list. So if you had a bunch of the old school Leman Russ, you just got to use them as the regular ones, so sorry about that. I don't think that's really big of a deal. There weren't many that people were taking, because if you took a Leman Russ, it was always a tank commander anyway, so who really cares? Also of note, for me specifically, the Aquila Lander has been removed, which blew me away. That was a shocker. That might just be me personally, because I'm somebody who came into the game originally with Battle for McCrag, the old school starter set back in 4th edition. As a result, the Aquila Lander was one of the most iconic pieces of equipment in the 40k universe to me personally. Because that whole set it came with a crashed Aquila Lander. It was a series of narrative missions that would teach you the game, and the whole point was to save this little dude who was carrying some Space Marine gene seed, who was a survivor of the crash. And so the fact that entire model is not, there's no data sheet for that model anymore, was a little surprising to me, to be honest. So that was a weird one, but otherwise, it looks like a bunch of weird random stuff got removed. I don't know if I've ever seen any of these things on the table, so nothing of value was lost, I don't believe. Moving down to some of the other Imperium factions, Grey Knights lost all of their data sheets. None of their existing data sheets are in there, except for the Grey Knights Thunderhawk gunship. However, there is a new entry called a Land Raider Banisher. There aren't many totally new data sheets that I can see, and I haven't seen any reference to a Land Raider Banisher anywhere else. So it looks like this might be either the Vortimer Redeemer being retooled into a new Land Raider, or a brand new thing. I think it would be cool to have a new thing for Grey Knights, maybe a Land Raider that's pretty good. Hopefully, we'll see. Grey Knights need some loving, so if they got a cool Land Raider datasheet, I think that would help. Just closing out the last Imperial factions here, the Inquisition lost its Inquisition Land Raider Prometheus. Not a huge deal, because a lot of the Inquisition stuff could just go into other people's transports, so I don't know how much that matters, but it is a little sad that they can't bring their own ride to the game anymore. No changes to Imperial Knights, Adeptus Mechanicus, or Titan Legions. Adeptus Custodes lost the Contemptor Exemplar, which I believe had already been legended, so no changes there. Down to Forces of Chaos. Looks like a Chaos Sicarian Punisher was added. I think this, it was kind of weird that Chaos didn't have this one. They had the Battle Tank and the Venator already, but they just didn't have a Punisher, at least from what I can see, so now they do. Sweet. What Chaos lost, however, or Chaos Space Marines in specific, was all of their characters, which is a little shocking to me. They lost the Hellrite on Dark Abeyant, Lord Arcos, and Zufor the Impaler. Pretty interesting. Lord Arcos, I think, saw a lot of play in 8th edition in Alpha Legion lists because he's really good. But he's gone now. All of those characters are just gone. So there you go. Death Guard lost a lot of their weird demon options. Plague Hulks, Pox Riders, Plague Toads, and Necrosius the Undying have all been removed. No changes to Chaos Knights, Heretic Titan Legions, one of the other few factions in the game that received a new datasheet, the Warbringer Nemesis Titan, which I think was just released recently as a model and has already seen a lot of play in Adeptus Titanicus, the other miniatures game. Moving over to Chaos Demons, basically is kind of the same story as Death Guard. They lost a lot of the weird Nurgle Chaos Demons options, also some other random stuff. Giant Chaos Spawn, and Spined Chaos Beast, which is unfortunate. I think the Spined Chaos Beast was a pretty cool model. But Craft Worlds got some big changes. Corsairs entirely missing. There's just no Corsairs anymore. I think that's fine, in my opinion. Corsairs were weird. In 8th edition, if I remember correctly, they couldn't battle forge, I think, if you played pure Corsairs. So they you had to play an unbound army, I think, if you played them. In some factions, some tournaments, a lot of them is like kind of a bizarre thing. But they were playable. They placed in some tournaments occasionally. I'm just kind of glad to have them gone. They are just regular Eldar models, but you play with weird rules. So those have been removed. Wasp Assault Walkers have been removed. The Vampires have gone. The Hunter and the Raider, interesting. And then some other random tanks. The Phoenix and the Firestorm have been taken away. Drukhari just lost the Raven. I don't even know what that was, so I think we're okay. Necrons, following kind of the similar tale as some of the other factions with a lot of options in them, Necrons lost all their characters. So Kutlok the World Killer and Toholok the Blinded, excuse me. They have been removed. One of them gave you rerolls on Seize the Initiative, so that didn't even work in 9th edition, so that's not a big deal. Otherwise, Necrons just lost the Tomb Citadel, which nobody is really mourning for, I don't think. I was hearing stories of that option being banned in tournaments because it could not physically be placed on the table in 8th edition a lot of times. It was basically a table in and of itself that was played as a fortification, and then you had to teach your opponent the old fortification rules. What a mess. So let's just get rid of that. And you can just buy it and use it as terrain. And assuming if GW's new terrain-centric system catches on, maybe you can just bring it as one of your terrain pieces and buy it with terrain points. Orks actually got some new data sheets, as far as I can see. The Warboss and Warbike, he's back. He got removed in Militarum Field Manual, but he's come on back in. Also, the Cannon Wagon, which I haven't seen before. However, some other data sheets were removed, which may be just be this Cannon Wagon thing. Zardsnark the Ripper got taken away. He got ripped right out of there, which is I think fine. If you have the Warboss and Warbike, Zardsnark is just sometimes a better Warboss and Warbike, which is kind of annoying. He also follows a lot of the Forge World issues where he's like a named character but doesn't have an assigned Warlord trait, so you could give him random Warlord traits and make him super powerful. As long as you have a Warboss and Warbike, you're just going to take that guy, so I think everyone with the Zardsnark the Ripper model is going to be okay. Also, the optics of having a model named the Ripper is, I don't know, a little awkward, so there you go. We lost some other random stuff that I think had been legended already. Bomb launches, attack fighters, and fighter bombers. The battle wagon with the super cannon was taken out, but we did get this cannon wagon thing. So it sounds like to me that a battle wagon with a super cannon is just a cannon wagon, because that name rolls off the tongue a little bit better. Also, the lift to track has been gone, and some of the big tanks, the Killer Crusher and the Death Roller Battle Fortress, are gone as well. Tau Empire lost some stuff, lost a lot of stuff, actually, which was surprising to me. Chasseur Ramir is gone. A lot of the commanders that went into strange experimental battlesuits, XV-81s and 84s, I don't know what those are off the top of my head, but those have been removed. DX4 technical drones, one of the versions of Piranhas are gone. The Orca dropship is gone, which is sad because I thought that thing looked kind of cool. As well as the TX7 fire support and heavy bombardment hammerheads, which I think did see some play, but they were sort of weirdly underpowered with their old datasheet, if I remember correctly. Despite having like just a billion missiles put onto them, they didn't do that much damage. Unfortunately, the plight of the hammerhead continues, and they just get no lovin'. Also, remote sensor towers and drone sentry turrets, it looks like have been removed, which is a little sad because I think those models are very cool. But again, you could just use them as terrain, so I think we're okay. We're okay there. We actually use remote sensor towers in some of the T5S2 maps, just for street lighting for Tau maps, and they end up looking very cool. You do some lighting effects on them and some particle effects, and they actually look very natural. So, just rounding out the Xenos factions, Tyranids, no changes. Looks like Tyranids have stayed exactly the same. Which means that probably nothing will be playable in that. Otherwise, things to note, Renegades and Heretics do not appear here at all, so it looks like they may have been removed. And hopefully we see them return in a future installment of Imperial Armor. They were very cool and unique sub-faction. Also, no mention of Elysian Drop Troopers. That is a damn shame, because I think all of the drop vehicles, especially the little dune buggy variants and stuff like that, were super cool. Elysian drop troopers themselves, just as Imperial Guardsmen that could deep strike, were very good, and especially if you were playing an Imperial Guard list that was kind of focused more on mobility, if you're trying to score secondaries, like engage in all fronts and deploy scramblers, having those guys in your back pocket is pretty nice. Although they sort of bizarrely overlapped with Tempesta Scions a lot, so it's not super surprising to me that they would just kind of get the axe. But hopefully, again, that's another thing that we see return in the future, because I do think that they were a unique look. We got some Starship Troopers looking guys, which was pretty cool. They looked a little more near future sci-fi rather than kind of the World War I aesthetic that the rest of the Imperial Guard had, and I would like to see them return because they were pretty dynamic on the table. Otherwise, this article doesn't give us a ton of information about what to expect with these new data sheets. It does say that they are up to date, whether that just brings them up to date with the new mechanics, with new points values, and new faction abilities like Space Marines, with the core keyword and all that stuff. That remains to be seen. I mean, I'm hoping that we see some rebalancing of these data sheets in general, and hopefully some of these, there's a lot of garbage in Forge World, and the stuff that isn't garbage tends to be incredibly overpowered. So fingers crossed we get it brought back to parity, Forge World options become playable options again, and the Space Marine stuff that keeps killing everybody isn't quite so broken. I'm also hoping that we see regular updates to this document. One of the issues with Forge World datasheets in the past has been that they typically list some outdated rules, and that can create some ambiguity and confusion in the rules, and also open the door for some exploitation. So best case scenario would be that we see that gone. Now, I imagine that we're going to see a rule in here similar to the Mandatory Field Manual rule that makes all of these data sheets legal for matched play. As I round out the video, I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit and editorialize. I think unless these Forge World datasheets are a significant departure from the quality of datasheets that we've seen in the past, I'm kind of hoping that we don't get that rule. I don't think much of value would be lost were Forge World datasheets to be relegated to the domain of open play or narrative play. Games Workshop has been trying to make strides to tighten down the competitiveness of 40k, and in my humble opinion, I think that these Forge World rules in the past have been kind of anathema to that goal. So it'll be a good indicator if GW is really worried about maintaining the balance of the game, whether or not they make that decision. I have my fingers crossed for it. I think Forge World is a little bit unbalancing, just for the fact that some factions have a greater incidence of it, and therefore have a greater chance of having some gems appear out of the just endless pile of dirt that is this enormous stack of data sheets. And also for the reasons that I mentioned earlier, where sometimes their rules get out of date and they become eminently exploitable. But hopefully the GW rules team has their head screwed on right this week and has given us a swath of good data sheets that have good wording on them, no enormous exploitable loopholes, and super broken stuff. But we'll see, and definitely I'll be here to talk about it, so stay tuned for some discussion on the upcoming Imperial Armor Compendium, releasing this Friday. So that's going to be it for our coverage of this preview. Thanks everybody again for watching. I really appreciate it. And I hope everyone's getting excited about potentially some reworked datasheets for some Forge World options that hopefully can bring some of these sadder factions up to date. I'm hoping like maybe Tau Empire gets some good stuff. We start seeing them on the table again. I think that would be cool. Let's see some Chaos Space Marines like come back in with some really powerful things. I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting. And sifting through like 200 datasheets worth of rules is going to be really fun. I want to remind everybody that if you like this video, go ahead and drop a like and a subscribe. Do all that YouTube stuff. Also, big thanks to my Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/tacticaltortoise. You guys are the best, and I really appreciate it. If you want to join them, you get all sorts of cool stuff like early access to videos, exclusive content, and early access to events on the Discord server. You can also join the YouTube membership program on the join button down below. You get some sweet stuff like badges for your YouTube profile and some emojis that you can use that are pretty fun, I think, if I do say so myself. Thanks again for watching, everyone. Have a good one. Keep it classy, folks. And have happy wargaming.